Hi everyone. Chris has asked me to do a brief video on the paper that I wrote with Rob Kitchin back in 2016, 2017, called Smart Place to Work. And so what I'll do is tell you a little bit about the research that went into it and some of the ideas we were playing with after that research process. Now, I can't quite remember, but I suspect we're still under an NDC agreement about the company that this was done with. So I'm not going to mention what supermarket chain we actually did this research with. Read in the paper, and if you're informed about these things, I'm sure you could work it out, no problem at all. They're a firm which is based not just in the Republic of Ireland where the research was done, but also in the UK as well. But that's not unusual. There are a few firms that work across that border too. In the context of this paper, that was interesting because a lot of the data flows weren't confined to the Republic of Ireland. They moved back and forth between the UK and the Republic of Ireland. And indeed, some of the systems that we looked at were developed in a UK context, which meant translating them into an Irish context was actually pretty disastrous in terms of workflow. So that sets some of the scene for what went on here. In terms of the research itself, I spent probably 2.5 months towards the end of the year 2015 doing a series of roles within a large supermarket site in the Republic of Ireland. Now, what I mean by series of roles is I went into this supermarket. I spent a week with customer service. I spent a week with checkout. I spent a week with stock control. I spent a week with the sort of online delivery team, so out on the vans doing online deliveries. I spent a week with the internal online team, so doing sort of picking of items as orders came in, for example. I spent a week with the sort of store management, shadowing what they do. So spent some time with checkouts. That was really interesting. And I spent some time with the store compliance team, which basically were tech guys who were looking to solve problems. And there were millions of them. There were so many problems in this store. So what you had was, at the end of 2015, a chain and a specific store site which had, in theory, moved towards full sort of digitization of systems. Okay, so take stock control, for example. Stock control is entirely done by a digital system. You have a handheld device which you use. You scan codes with your device, and then that tells both you as a stock controller what needs to be put on the shelves for that day, based on estimates given to you on the handset, and also triggers the just-in-time ordering system for more product if the stock is not sufficient for the next few days of ordering. So you've got this ordering system which is supposed to work automatically and in perfect time. And of course the system didn't work. Well, you might ask, okay, Leighton, why didn't the system work? It's because the PDAs ran off, actually at the time, 3G mobile signals, not even 4G mobile signals. In the big supermarket that they were in, there was no mobile signal. So you ask yourself, okay, well, could the handsets be upgraded to or use Wi-Fi signals? Well, in theory they could, I suppose, but you need to get a whole new set of equipment to do that, because these these PDAs weren't equipped for Wi-Fi, so you need to buy a whole new stock of Wi-Fi, and basically not a chance of doing that. And secondly, you'd need to fit the whole store with Wi-Fi, and not a chance of that either. So you have a whole bunch of systems that go on within you which rely on technology like outdated mobile phone technology, 3G signaling, which wouldn't work in the store. Really frustrating for people, for example, who were doing the online order fulfillment. They would go around the store with their with a different PDA, which would have orders loaded onto it. This is the typical system that works in any supermarket when you're going around to try and fulfill an order. Of course, the handsets were useless. They would drop out a signal. So you'd have to walk and find signal to see what you had to go next, then go back, pick that up, couldn't see, so you'd have to then pull the cart over to where there's a signal so you could scan that you've picked this thing. because online ordering would take ages just as you were trying to find a signal. And it's these kind of issues that we saw all across that environment, across the 8 weeks that I was in the store itself, and across the 2 weeks when I was sort of debriefing and giving my opinions and giving my report to the management and to the national management. Basically, the systems that they used were not fit for purpose. Now, in terms of the paper itself, what we were interested in beforehand was how this workplace had been transformed by digital technology. And we had a vague idea that sort of technologies used would see a transformation in the mode of governance of those workplaces from a disciplinary mode of governance, so sort of classic Foucauldian idea that governance is through bureaucracy, through paperwork, and through oversight, and this notion of the sort of panoptical view of management over staff, into a more distributed mode of governance where technological systems and data flows would allow management to view individual performance, to set KPIs, and basically to automate the sort of management of people and goods within the store. To an extent that works. So for example, if somebody's doing online fulfillment of orders, they're given a certain number of items that they have to pick from the shelves every hour, and if they fall behind that, they sort of get an orange or a red light. So it's a traffic light system, and they want to keep it above green. But of course, the management actually were fully aware that the system, the technology in place just did not work and, was not fit for purpose. So you see this oscillation between systems of control and this sort of governmental system of control, which the management and sort of the senior management and the national management saw as increasingly important. And actually, the reality on the ground was of a continually having to switch back and forth from that system of control. Apologies for these damn emails. I hate being a lecturer. There's so many emails. A continual oscillation back into systems of disciplinary governance, where management would have to be on the floor. Management would have to be keeping paper records of things because the digital systems didn't work. So you'd have store management who would be sitting in their offices and sort of looking at these data flows and just not recognizing what goes on the shop floor at all until they get out onto the shop floor. So obviously the visibility of the data that was actually produced in these systems, which are incomplete, sort of incompatible, frequently breaking down, frequently not functional. The data that was provided was only partial, and therefore management was caught between these two disciplinary regimes of control versus the traditional disciplinary regime itself. So in terms of governance of space, we have a kind of incomplete picture of what's going on. The governance of the supermarket itself has been pushed towards this sort of distributed digital governance of the space itself, but frequently, because the technology was not up to speed and there was a lack of investment in technology itself, you had to rely on the experience of people who were used to previous sort of modes of governance within that space. Okay, I hope that helps clarify the paper, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a million.